All right, shalom, shalom. Before I get started, I give you all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Berkat Kwadash. Double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. So today we're going to go into In the News, Prophecy Update, going into the current events through the power of spirit of Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Berkat Kwadash. Lord willing, you're edified, right? So let's get right into it, right? Because these goddamn devils, right? Scriptures say that they're going to come down with great wrath, knowing that the time is short, right? So you're going to have more unrighteous decrees instituted, right? As you see free speech, the being regulated, right? That is the plan of the wicked elites, right? For the information that is readily available, for it to be attacked and regulated, right? And this is what is coming to pass in these last days, right? As the Israelites are waking up, the remnant of the nation of Israel, right, which consists of you Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans today, 12 tribes, the remnant, which will not take the charagma, right, and are prophesying in these latter days, Yahweh Bashem Yahushai, right? The Most High God's name is Yahweh. Bashem means in the name in the ancient Hebrew tongue. Yahweh Shai Hamashayak is who you call Jesus Christ in ignorance, right? So these are the things that are being brought forth, right? uh, uh, Book of Psalms says that the wicked cannot sleep unless they devise wicked schemes, right? So let's get that real quick. This is the book of Micah, chapter 2, and verse 1. Let's get it in the NLT. Says, what sorrow awaits you who lie awake at night, thinking up evil plans? You rise at dawn and hurry to carry them out, simply because you have the power to do so, right? But you rebel, right? Which we are the sons of God, right? As the spirit of men. Quick, let's look that up. Right. So this is Esau Edom's plan, which Esau Edom, he's a so-called white man today. You had Abraham had had two sons, right? Well, really, he had eight, like Elder Yashawamba was recently bringing out, right? But those other children were of concubines, right? The seed of promise was via Isaac, right? So Abraham had eight children, and including Ishmael, right? But the promises were according, and a lot of people say that Ishmael was firstborn, yada yada yada, but the concubine was a lesser wife, right? So that's a good point that the Yashawamba recently brought out, right? That these are the children that Abraham had, right? Uh, right, they were via concubines, right? But Sarah was the one who was called to bring forth Isaac, right? Now Isaac had what? He had Jacob and Esau, right? So it's through Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, right? Jacob and Esau fought in the womb as they were children, right? In the stomach of their mother Rebecca, right? And these two nations are still here today, right? The 12 tribes. Jacob had 12 sons, which became the 12 tribes, right? Genesis 25 and 25 says Esau came out all red like a hairy garment, right? This is who you call the so-called white man today, right? These are the wicked of the earth, right? They have the a stronghold, right, on as far as military, right? The food that you eat, right? Everything is controlled via his dominion, right? Which the Most High God gave him the dominion, gave him the ability uh, uh, to produce weapons, to produce for his armies, right? Technology, right? Which all those things lead to the charagma, right? Which says Revelation 13:16 says he's going to cause both small and great, rich and poor, right, to receive the charagma, right, in the form of their technology, right, which it's a C hip, right. At the end of the day, what will come to pass is, like I said, these unrighteous decrees will be brought forth. This is what's being pushed by the World Economic Forum, right? Uh, uh, the mindset that they're pushing is that you will be as the gods, but really all these things are sorceries are involved, right? You have actual sorceries, and then you have, right. The Greek says for witchcraft is pharmakia, right? Which uh, goes into particular medicines and herbs, which are used on the left hand side, right? For wickedness, right? And these are the things that are being pushed, right? What is happening is there's being a blurring of the lines, right? That the lines are being blurred, right? Which is why you see uh, a perverse spirit in the midst of America, Babylon the Great, right? These are the things that are being pushed, right? Rebellion, right? Dissension, right? As you see, for example, in the news, you have migrants always on the headlines, right? So the mindset that is being pushed is division, right? As you see, and the Lord did that, right? Uh, put in the spirit of these migrants, right? Uh, now it could be that could actually be happening what is being pushed, but again, these things, like Donald Trump said, they're you can't believe everything that's in the news, right? So it could be actually happening like that or not. But the point is that this is what's being pushed, division, right? Which ultimately is going to lead to more dissension, right? These are the plans of the wicked elite, right? To push a mindset of division, rebellion, right? All these things, right? Is what the Lord is doing in these last days, right? So the World Economic Forum says you will be as the gods, right? But right when you go into these particular left-hand practices, what eventually is happening is the even for example, you eat particular foods which have uh, which are produced right via for example GMOs, right? All these things affect your body, right? So the blurring the lines is going to be via propaganda, right? Via right these left-hand practices, the sorceries, right? Which is why scriptures say that the book of Revelation that deceive the nations by its sorceries, right? So this is what's going on in the background, right? You have Esau's priesthood on the left-hand side pushing these things via the wicked elite. The common everyday Edomite, it doesn't have the whole understanding of what is actually going on, right? Which is why there is an attempt uh, to seal the masses from receiving this information, right? And this is going to be through these unrighteous decrees. And let's get that precept in the book of Hebrews. chapter 12, verse 23, let's get that in the NLT. You come to the assembly of God's firstborn children whose names are written in heaven, right? A name represents what? Who you are, Sikari, right? They don't put emphasis on the name. That's why the scriptures say that the servants of Yahweh Bashim Yahushua will be sealed, right, with the Lord's name on their forehead, right? Right is what ultimately directs you, right, where your intentions lie, right? So that name, right, which is talking about the elect, right? You have right in the creation, you have the Most High God, Yahweh Shai, created the first begotten creation, Yahweh Shai, right? Then the angels, the Alahayim, right, which was in the creation, created the angels. Then the angels created men, right? So everything has a particular order, just like you have the elect, right, starting with the 144,000, which are the heads, right, the teachers, right, those that are prophesying, right. Just because you're in a camp, right, and you got your fancy purple garment, doesn't mean you're a prophet, right? The scriptures say that there must be heresies to show those that are approved amongst you, right? So it's not about ultimately about how you look. It's about what is being put forth, right? What is being pushed, right? Which these other camps are pushing what gimmicks, right? Constantly being rebuked by Great Millstone, right? Which we are the most hated camp, right? We are the ones, right? Dividing the words of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? In righteousness and in truth, right? So it says, you have come to the assembly of God's firstborn children whose names are written in heaven, right? Because, like I said, you have the sons of God, right? There is something called reincarnation according to the Holy Bible, right? So reincarnation, right, it means that the Lord sends back that spirit back into the earth every fourth generation, right? Like Paul the Apostle said, the spirit of the prophets is subject unto the prophets, right? So this is what he had said via his word, right? That the sons of God which rebelled, right? You also have in Genesis chapter 3, you have the serpent, you have the trees of the garden, right? And then uh, you have the woman, right? Which was ultimately speaking about a chosen line, right? You have Adam, Eve, right? You had other Adams, right? And other Eves, right? Just like you read about in the genealogies in the book of Genesis, right? Particular men, they had other children as well, right? Uh, Methuselah, and so on and so forth, right? Um, so that's what it's talking about, right? The assembly of God's firstborn children, right? These are just different different titles for different times, right? You have the sons of God. Again, that represents the nation of Israel today, right? The nation of Israel, before it was Israel, they were called the sons of God. Before the sons of God, they were called the woman, right? Which had enmity with the serpent, right? As prophesied. You have Cain, Abel, right? These are archetypes for what? Uh, for ultimately the nation of Israel when it was established, right? It was established as a nation, including the righteous and the wicked, right? Which you have the 2/3, and then you have the remnant, which is the 1/3, right? Which will return to Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? You have the serpent, which represents Cain. Cain represents the wicked. Cain is also Esau because he received that mark of leprosy, right? And the serpent ultimately is was um, was also Cain, and then later came in as Esau. Right, the nations, like it says in Book of Genesis, you had the serpent, you had the trees in the garden, which represented the other nations. Right, which now they come in the form of what? Hamites, right, which are the so-called Africans, not the Negroes. Right, the Negroes descend from Shem. Right, when they say anti-Sem, that's talking about, right, a man named Shem that had children, right, including via the line of Abraham, right? Ishmael, he's considered a Shemite, right, or Semitic, right, which is where you get the term Semitic languages, right, like Arabic, Hebrew, Syriac, right? These are Semitic languages because it's through a line, right, of Shem, right? You have Shem, Ham, Japheth. Japheth would be the Polynesians today, right? The original Greeks, right? So these are the things that we go into, the history, the current events, lining them up with the prophetic word, right? So Noah had three sons, Abraham, or Salakia, Shem, Ham, Japheth, right? Through Shem came that line through the chosen seed, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, right? Esau is also a Shemitic, which is where the small hats, right? Those that claim to be the people today, they get that term, right? Anti-Sem, right? Because they're claiming to be God's chosen people, right? But it's Shem was actually a man, and there's actual particular nations that were brought forth through that line, right? So the assembly of God's firstborn children, right? Like I said, in the book of Genesis, you had Adam, Eve, right? Which it wasn't just at one Adam, one Eve, right? Adam was just another way to say man, right? Or men, mankind, right? Eve was basically just woman or womankind, right? So there were other Adams, there were other Eves, right? It's just another way to say male, female, right? But again, there was a chosen line. There's always been throughout time, right? Those that rebelled, right, of the nation of Israel symbolically, right, like the sons of God, right? They rebelled as a whole, right? But you had particular remnants throughout these various times, like Abel, right, which was slew by his brother Cain. You have Noah, which walked with God, right, as it is written, and right. So that's the assembly of God's firstborn children, right, whose names are written in heaven, right? Because just like this word, right, like Scripture say in the book of Psalms, "Thy word resteth in heaven." Why? Because these things have already been predetermined, right? So this is what it says: you have come to God Himself, who is the judge over all things. You have come to the Spirit of the righteous one in heaven, who have now been made perfect, right? Which starts with His word, right? The perfect understanding going out, and also, right, the straight gate, right? Which Yahushua spoke about, right? He said, Wide is the way unto destruction, straight and narrow is the way unto salvation, right? So it starts with His word, and then, right, the things, particular things that you will go through in this thing, right? Individually, right? So you're not going to, right, smoothly enter and receive the kingdom, right? Scriptures say that what? That the righteous will scarcely be saved, right? The book of Job says that we will escape by the skin of our teeth, right? Daniel chapter 12 says that a time is coming which has not been since the foundation of the world, right? So you're going to have more of these sorceries pushed out, more of these mindsets, right? Uh, via mainstream media, right? Pushed out and to cause division, right? And ultimately, like I said, the servants of the Lord are the number one target, right? Which were ultimately going to be tied to what? Paramilitary groups, white supremacist groups, Islamic extremism, right? When we're not, we have nothing to do with any of that, right? We're not calling anyone to take up arms. We're just reading the scriptures and breaking down the prophetic word, right, through the Spirit of the Lord, right. But again, uh, uh, it even says in the Book of Psalms that He will cause His own tongue to fall upon him, Esau, Edom. Why? Because ultimately, this the internet, the age of information that we live in, all these things are working against him, right? Because ultimately, he doesn't want the modern day, uh, uh, the everyday Edomite even to know these things, right? So this is why, right, ultimately, these unrighteous decrees have to go forth, right? So that's how the righteous are being made perfect via tribulation, via, right, the understanding going out, right, being directed via the Spirit, right, to understand the times that we're in, right? So let's see. So let's so this is what Esau Edom is ultimately gonna do, right? Which is he's a so-called white man today, right? Uh, he's gonna cause right this gospel ultimately right to cease, right, in the form of what? The famine of the word, which ultimately, right, you're not going to be able to uh, search up any of the videos, right? You're not going to be able to even own a Bible, right? Ultimately, it's going to come to that, right? Then you're going to have everything else come to pass, like the Charagma, right? Martial law being enacted, FEMA camps, so on and so forth, right? Those that do not take the Charagma, right, will ultimately will not be able to buy or sell, right? Which ultimately that's going to cause more dissension, right? More store closures, right? All these things are being created and are being brought to pass, right, for the time of Jacob's trouble, right? Which is also the trouble for the other nations as well, trouble for Esau Edom, right? Because all these things, right, are going to, like it says in the book of Revelation, that pale horse, right? They're gonna reach the boiling point, right? Ultimately, that's gonna bring forth calamity, right? And so on and so forth, right? The book of Second Esdras says that what that right, one man will not be able to enter into another city, right? One house shall invade another for lack of water, lack of bread, right? Because those that do not take the charagma, ultimately they're going to, right, spoil those that take it, right? So on and so forth, right? So let's get to that article, which reads here: news about Supreme Court decision, free speech, right? So this is from the Washington Examiner, which says Supreme Court justices appear skeptical of GOP states major internet free speech case, right? So again, these are the sorceries going out, right? Because got things like spirit cooking, right, which these celebrities promote, right? Ultimately, all these things will affect the senses, the motor skills, right? Which is why you see particular accidents, right, that happen, GMOs, right? The the fumes in the air, right? You have right. Uh, Recently, I noticed there's these um, smoke detectors that have they have an ion charge, which they have well, you can look it up yourself, but basically they're they have chemicals in it too, right? So everything is defiled, right? Like scripture say, yet you have these other camps, right, contending about what? Basically, like the apostles contended with Yahweh, right? They weren't contending with Yahweh, but they were contending amongst themselves who would be the greatest, who would be the least in the kingdom, right? And that's basically what these other camps are doing, right? And that's on point because Paul the apostle said, "Do not dispute about unprofitable things concerning the law or endless genealogies, right? Because ultimately we're going to have to rely on grace, right? Ultimately, the law is not going to save you, right? But the law is good, right? If used lawfully, right? So this is what these men are doing, right? They're what? Uh, uh Going into Matthew chapter 5, right? They're saying, well, you have to keep the law, or else you won't enter into the kingdom of heaven, right? But they don't understand. They missed the point that Yahweh Shai was speaking about. He said, unless your righteousness exceed the righteousness of the Pharisees, you shall in no wise enter into the kingdom of heaven. What is righteousness? Righteousness is justice, right? To be justified in your sayings, like Paul the apostle said, right? Our sayings is what? That we have grace, right? The law still stands, and the prophecies need to go out, right? Which these other camps, they're not emphasizing about the charagma, right? They're not emphasizing about the right what is going on in the concerning as far as current events, right? So these are the things, right, that we're touching on, right, as we do the sit downs or prophesy on highways and byways, right? We bring in these particular points, right, which the remnant will receive, right, and understand, right. So it says, is the article from the Washington Examiner, says the Supreme Court appeared skeptical of arguments Monday by the state of Florida and Texas that they are justified in regulating social media content moderation in a landmark case with major implications for free speech on the internet. This is Isaiah chapter 10 and verse 1, which says, woe unto those who make unjust laws, to those whose issue oppressive decrees, right? And this is ultimately what's happening, right? For to bring that great wrath, right? Which I notice, right? Bright lights, LEDs. You go into buildings and it's just too damn bright. All these things are meant to throw off the senses, right? Even particular traffic stops, right? These lights, they just they suddenly turn green or red, right? Which all these things are made, right, to vex you, right, to confuse, not just the senses but the mindset, right? So that division, that's how you keep the people occupied, right, with bread and circus, right? With that bread and circus, just like in the ancient Roman Empire. But anyways, let's go back to the article. It says the court heard oral arguments for two major speech related cases on Monday. Says the technology industry group Net Choice sued the state of Texas and Florida over laws imposed by Republicans meant to hold social media platforms accountable for banning users based on viewpoint. Says Florida's law would allow residents to take legal action and the state to fine companies if they remove political candidates from social media platforms. The Texas law would require platforms to be content neutral and allow the state's attorney general and residents to sue platforms for removing content or blocking accounts. The court pressed the states to provide a justification for restricting speech. The justices, though, also asked questions aimed at determining the extent of big tech's power over speech on the internet. So the particular proceeding is Net Choice versus Moody. Says Florida Solicitor General Henry Whitaker was first to appear before the court to argue in Net Choice versus Moody. He said that platforms had to be neutral when it comes to content moderation and that the law merely regulates the conduct of a platform rather than the content. He also alleged that platforms such as Facebook and Google need to be treated as common carriers, being defined as a common carrier, a term initially used for public transportation services and utilities but expanded to include radio stations and telephone services, would subject platforms to additional restrictions, including anti discrimination regulations. Right? So that's what they're ultimately going to say, right? That we're racist, right? That we're terrorists, that we're pushing a anti-government mindset, right? But that's what's Esau is doing too, via these right these various uh, um, platforms, right? Division, right? So it's these things are being done on purpose, right? It's not a coincidence that, right, there's so much dissension, right, happening in these last days, right? Which the government recently said that there are particular individuals in the military which they're watching, right, uh, and so on and so forth, right, that are part of cults, right? So it says multiple members of the court appear skeptical of Florida's law, noting that it was very broad and affected more platforms than some claimed it would. Florida's law is covering almost everything. Justice Sonia Sotomayor said, "The only thing I know about the internet is that its variety is infinite." Says Paul Clement, Net Choice's representative, responded in his arguments by saying that Florida's law violated the First Amendment multiple times over. He also tried to create a distinction between content moderation, decisions made by government entities versus private entities. These are things that if the government does, it's a First Amendment problem. And if a private speaker does it, we recognize that as protected activity, right? So while Jake is slaving away at his job, right, uh, putting in them hours, like he says, right, you have these things being brought forth, right? Jake doesn't know what times we're in, right? Again, Jake is short for Jacob, right? So this is what's going on, right? You have all these things which are defiled, right? And right, you got wildfires, you got all these things and these mindsets that are being pushed out, division being pushed out, right? The unrighteous decrees, all these things are written in prophecy, right? So let's see if we can get some more out of this. So it says he also emphasized to the justices that a social media company was more like a parade or newspaper than common carrier, trying to focus on the state of speech on the platform. So it says court conclusions. The court appeared divided on the extent to which content moderation was allowed. On one hand, they saw government enforced moderation as questionable, mainly if it focused on content. On the other hand, they criticized the power exerted by big tech companies. Justice Neil Gorsuch brought up the example of private messaging services such as Gmail deciding to delete communications due to them violating certain viewpoint communications, a matter that multiple justices brought up before Clement. Right? So there you have it. Right? These unrighteous decrees are written, right, in prophecy, right, as we're, of course, in America, Babylon the Great, right? Babel means confusion, right? The root word is balal, meaning to mingle, right? To mix, right? So this is what the wicked elite are mingling, right? Their formula is to cause dissension, right? To have the truth ultimately outlawed, right? Because the truth had to go out. Why? Because this is Esau's plan, right? To get the remnant that will seek the truth, right? Which is this is why you have other camps set up. This is why Esau let the word go out because he knew, right, via his left hand priesthood, that the elect would wake up, they would prophesy, right, and which the elect are the 144,000, the great multitude, right. So ultimately, he knew the remnant would wake up and receive the truth, right. It's not for any other reason, right. It's not because, right, okay, we're gonna get these camps, and then we're gonna convert them to Islam. No, the ultimate plan is for the remnant to be what persecuted, right? They'll be drawn by the word, and ultimately, right, these things are written right in prophecy, right, for the remnant to wake up, receive the word, 2/3, right. Uh, uh, Basically, they're gonna keep following after this world, right? And this is how you know that that we're entering right those times, right? The time of great wrath, right? Which is why Elder Apostle Tahar recently coined this year the hopeful year of Jacob's trouble coming to pass, right? So we rejoice in these things to hear these things being brought up, right? These unrighteous decrees. Why? Because that shows us through the Spirit that right that the Lord is bringing the things that He spoke of to pass, right? So now let's go on to the Twitter, formerly known as Twitter, which now it is X, right? Which that X, right? When you look at it, right, all these things are symbolic, right? What is that, and what does this look like, right? That looks like a little charagma, right? And that looks like a little right where it's gonna go, right? Now let's go into that real quick actually because I touched on that before, right? So the signs are there, right? And the truth is out, right? And it's not a big secret anymore who the nations are, right? Who are God's chosen people, right? What the charagma is, right? How the prophecies, how uh, the things written will come to pass, and so on and so forth, right? So let's see, Slovakia. Let me look this up real quick. So you have Chi, right? You have Psi, and then you have Sigma, right? Which is the which is 666, right? Now let's look at the let's see what is it? Okay, there it is. No, that's not what I'm looking for. Let's go to the blue letter. So 603 scoring six, which is the number of the beast, right? You have chi, psi, sigma, stigma, right? Now let's go to blue letter again. So you have Christos, right? Which is this first symbol here, chi, which means 600, right? Meaning what? Christ, anointed, right? Uh, Now the word for anointed in the Hebrew is Mashayach, right? So they're different. Christ is just a title, right? Cyrus was called Christ. He was called anointed. That's why it says in the book of Isaiah, Cyrus my anointed, right? The Levitical priesthood, the heads, they were called anointed as well, right? So this is what Esau, Edom has. He has his left hand priesthood, right? That are anointed, right, to push wickedness, right, in these last days, in the form of the former things mentioned, right? Descension, right? Sorceries, right? Which includes actual sorceries, black magic, right? And then you have the the elements being used as sorceries, right? Which right, like I said, you can find it everywhere, right? Um, so this is their part of their the beast structure, right? Like it says in the book of Second Thessalonians, right? Let's get that, right? Because we can precept that with the unclean frogs, right? Which is an actual good point because I haven't really lined that up in that kind of way, right? So that's the spirit, right? That is working. And so let's just type in unclean frogs. And Second Thessalonians. That's the spirit because I've been meaning to touch on that particular breakdown. It's unfortunate that I had to do it uh, during the current events, news and current events um, prophecy update, right? And maybe I'll do a separate lesson on that, Lord willing. So Second Thessalonians, I believe that's chapter 2, right? So this goes into the man of sin, and Second Thessalonians 2 and 7. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work; only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. What is the mystery of iniquity? Right? That is these hidden forces, right? That work in the background, right? And to push sorceries, right? To push out this mindset, right? And ultimately, right? They're created, right, to Salakia, just 1 second. Satan's trying to hinder the lesson. So let's see. Salakia, just bear with me. Salakia, just bear with me. Slovakia. Uh, so that is what it's ultimately going into, right? Esau's priesthood, right, on the left hand side, which ultimately, like it says in the book of Isaiah, that they will seek the familiar spirits, right, wizards, right, which work in the background, right, in America, Babylon the Great, and ultimately that is part of the signs, lying wonders, right, to deceive the masses, essentially, right. Now let's get that in Second Thessalonians, right, which bear with me so I can pull it up for you. Second Thessalonians 2:7. For the mystery of iniquity doth already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. Second Thessalonians 2:9. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Right? The power is what? The military might, right? The signs, right, are his technology, right? The lying wonders are via his left hand priesthood, right? So all these things lead are going to lead to the charagma, right? Which two thirds will take the charagma, right? Two-thirds, uh, right, will go to the draft, right? Because that's what's coming. A draft is coming back, right? They're going to be drafted, right, in the time of World War III, right? And they're going to ultimately uh, go to the Valley of Decision, right, which is in the Middle East. And they're going to be drawn to fight Yahushua in the chariots, right? When Yahushua returns with the holy angels, right, two-thirds are going to be caught up in all these things, right? They're going to fight, right? Because this is what Esau is attempting to do, right? Which is a so-called white man. He's going to attempt to fight the holy angels. That's how bugged out these goddamn devils are, right? And Jake is going to go right along, right, with it, and the Lord is going to destroy him, essentially, right? So that is the signs. That is the lying wonders, right? To deceive, right? The armies, right? The technology, right? Because that is how particular enchantments go out. Pop culture, right? That's why you see Jake, right, out there in the world with his pants sagging, right, being a goddamn demon, right? You have Jake, right, still in that right mindset, right, that hood mentality, right, and he's not going to come out of that, right. Two-thirds are not going to come out of this world, right. They're not going to be like Elder Yashawamba says, they're not going to be galvanized, right, by the words of Yahweh Bashim Yahushai, right? Why? Because what does it say, Revelation chapter 13? That they will be deceived. They will be deceived by the beast. They will say, who can come up against him, right? Which is why two-thirds won't return, right? Because ultimately they have a lack of faith, right? They don't understand, right, that all these things are made and created uh, to to complement the Edomite and the common Edomite and to work for them. Why? Because this is their system, right? And these righteous decrees are meant to right to keep Jake in a stupefied state, right? Which is like I said, right? You have particular enchantments, right? Dealing with the air you breathe, right? Dealing with right particular, like I said, Esau's left hand priesthood, right? Particular foods that you eat, right? So we need salvation, right? We can't be justified by the law, right? We need grace, right? We have to rely on grace during particular times. And ultimately, you're going to have to walk in the Spirit at the end of the day, right? So it says, let's go back to verse verse 9, which says, even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Right? Now let's get that precept in the book of Revelation. Revelation 16:13. And I saw three unclean frogs, spirits like frogs, come out of the mouth of the dragon, and out of the mouth of the beast, and out of the mouth of the false prophet. Right? Because the dragon is NATO, EU, right? The mouth of the beast, right? Which is which is America, Babylon the Great, right? Uh, and out of the mouth of the false prophet, right? Which represents right the Vatican, right? Which is where you have all these religions come out of, right? Christianity, Catholicism, Islam, all these things go back to the Vatican, Esau. It's all part of Esau's structure, right? Out of the mouth of the beast. Why? Because in America, Babylon the Great, this is where you had right throughout time all these inventions, right? All these technological advances, right? Like the GPS system, which Jake made that. Jake made a lot of these things, and Esau took it, ran with it, just like he took over the Japhetic peoples, right? The Polynesians, the original Greeks. He went and then he ran with their culture, right? Which is why he's the ultimate culture vulture, right? So this is what he does. He heapeth up all people to himself, right? He is as death. He's not satisfied, right? Like scriptures say, right? Uh, he covets to take a field, right? By violence. They call the lands after their names, right? And right, they're not in trouble as other men, right? So while you have the system going down, right, you have the regular Edomite, right? He already got that head start, right? He has generational wealth, right? He owns everything, basically, right? So that's the plan, right? Is a controlled demolition, right? So those that are right thinking they have the upper hand, right? They're going to realize that they're being starved out ultimately, because that's going to lead to the charagma, right? So really, right, Esau is one slick devil, right? He knows what to do, he knows what not to do, right? He knows that Yahushua is coming back, right? And we're that sign, right, of like Yahushua said, the sign of Jonah, right? Jonah prophesied against Nineveh, right? Jonah prophesied a destruction, right? Which is what we're doing through the Spirit, right? Prophesying the things that are coming to pass, right? It's not just about cursing out the devil that the Bible speaks of. It's not just about that, right? It's about going into like we're going into now, the Chi Psi stigma, right? What you saw, his language is it has curses within it, not actual like curses like uh, hocus pocus, but when you go into particular words, right? They have to do with other words and right promotes nothing but confusion, right? Just like the Greek, right? Which we're able to line up particular things, right, and go into etymologies, right? Etymology is what origin of words. So that's what is giving us the ability to do it through the Spirit, right? So the three unclean frogs that came out of the mouth of the dragon, out of the mouth of the beast, out of the mouth of the false prophet, right? So, like I said, Jake invented what most of these things that you see today. Esau took it, ran with it, right? And right. So that's part of his system, right? Now let's go to Second Thessalonians 2:9. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, right? Power, signs, lying wonders, right? Let's go into lying wonders. Let's see. Haven't really went into that. So what is that? Lying wonders. Uh, that word is terras. Strong's G 5059. Terras, which says a prodigy, portent, miracle performed by anyone, a prodigy, omen, wonder. Accordingly, something so strange as to cause it to be watched or observed. Performed, a wonder performed by anyone, right? So this is how these sorceries are going out, right? Via lying wonders, right? Now let's look at that word for signs, which that word is Simeon, a sign, mark, token, that by which a person or thing is distinguished from others and is known. Of miracles and wonders by which God authenticates the men sent by him, or by men by which men prove that the cause they are pleading is God's, right? So the internet is a sign, right? It's that's part of his technology, right? You can chat with someone on the other side of the earth, right? That's basically a miracle, right? Like Elder Apostle Tahar says, uh, the modern day smartphone is basically what what the Lord gave to the Levites, in the form of what? The Urim and the Thummim, right? And right, so sign, prodigy, portent, an unusual occurrence, transcending the common course of nature, which is why he's attempting to edit the creation, right? He's attempting, right, to be the God, right? Via, right, what he's going to attempt to bring, the charagma, right? Uh, uh, and part of that is going to be brought via his armies, his military signs, aligned wonders. So let's go back to Chi Psi Stigma, right? And let's see what we can get from here. Attempt to find stigma or psi, which let's see, we can look that up. Okay, so that's that same word. Close some of these windows. Too many windows open. So three score Oh, that's not what I was looking for. So psi, the symbol says mind or soul, says it is used to represent the s- sound in ancient and modern Greek. The psi symbol is also used to denote the polygamma function, pharmacology, and nucleotide pseudoridine, among other things. The symbol for psychology represents the penultimate letter of the Greek alphabet, psi, which is also the first letter of the Greek word psyche, meaning mind or soul, from which the term psyche arose. Right? So this is associated with what? Mind, soul, right? Pharmacology, psychology, right? Um, right? In the form of enchantments, right? To right, fear being used as a weapon, right? Among other things, right? Like I previously mentioned, right? So it says it has a value of 700 letters that came from it include Cyrillic. It says in mathematics, the uppercase psi is used as a variable set for sentences. In logic, and the lowercase is used to represent the sum of reciprocals of Fibonacci numbers. Slovakia. Right? So you have Esau's priesthood on the left hand side, right? Working by their means. Then you have the technology working its means as well, right? Which includes, right, things like the military, right? Chaos, order out of chaos, right? Which is where you get that term, Norbis Ordo Seclorum, right? False flag events, right? So all these things add up when you put them in perspective, right? And let's look at the word for sigma, right? So we have the lying wonders, you have the signs, right? Uh, that mindset being pushed out, right? And then ultimately, right, right? The charagma, right, is going to be the sigma, right? So you have Chi, right? Christos, and you have the Psi, right, which represents things like pseudoscience, right, psychology, so on and so forth, right? Which is right, it's going to be enforced via the their power, signs, and line wonders, right? The right, which is going to be enforced via the let's get that real quick. So the dragon, right, which is the NATO EU, right, and let's get that in Second Thessalonians. Give you a perspective. Second Thessalonians. Second Thessalonians 2:9. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders. Right? So you have right the first unclean spirit came out of the mouth of the dragon, right? NATO, EU, right? That is the power. These signs is what? Uh via the technology, right? These sorceries going out, right? Which is a psi, right? Enchantments, pharmakia, pseudoscience, right? Chi representing Christos, right? The right, which is through Esau's left hand priesthood, right? So you have the power, the technology, and the lying wonders, the priesthood, the left hand priesthood, right? And ultimately, right, like I said, that psi it represents how those things are going to be pushed. The mindset's being pushed via propaganda, false flag events, right? Via uh, the technology, right? Via right the elements being used, right, for wickedness, right? So let's see. You have Christos. You have the right psi, right, psychology, which goes into psychology, right, and ultimately, right, the power is going to be given to Esau to institute the charagma, right? Salakia. right? So, like I said, right, yeah, the anointed on the left hand side, right, that is the Kai, that it represents 600, six core Psi, which is the right, the technology, right, Sigma, right, which represents how the charagma is going to be given, right, and so let's look at line that up with the Book of Revelation, right? You have the frog that came out of the mouth of the dragon, right? Esau's army, right? Because this is going to be, it's not just going to be in America, Babylon the Great. This is going to be worldwide, right? The beast, right? Which is where the propaganda, the center of prophecy, right, is going out via technology, right? And then the false prophet, right, via philosophies, via, right, the left hand priesthood, right, via the anointing on the left hand side, right? So that's how all these things will come to pass. Let's look at uh, Sigma or Stigma. So it's not a Christianity. It's not the charagma, right? It's not Christianity, right? It's not a picture of Caesar Borgia, right? Stigma, from primarily stizo to stick, prick, a mark pricked or branded upon the body to ancient Oriental usage. Slaves and soldiers bear the name and stamp of their master or commander, branded or pricked into their bodies to indicate what master or general they belong to, and there were even some devotees who stamped themselves in this way with the token of their gods. Right? Salakia. Whew. Which is what the Esau did during the Roman Empire, right? Brands, and you still see that in particular sororities, right? With the tokens of their idols, right? Which Paul the Apostle spoke about the marks of the Lord of Yahweh Shai, Yahweh Bashim Yahweh Shai, because he was talking about actual things that he went through, right? He was whipped by the Jews, right, according to the law, right, and so on and so forth, right. He was in shipwreck, right. He when they landed on that island, right, he caught that serpent, right, so on and so forth, right. So Paul the apostle, he went through it, right. But that's pretty much it, right. I was going to go into the Twitter feed, but the spirit uh led me to go into the Kasai Sigma, right. Go a little bit more in depth, right, put it in perspective. So, Lord willing, you were edified. It's Brother Yatazadak, hero Israel. As always, giving all honor and glory to Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushai, Ba'ashem Rakakwadash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone. Kwam Yasha Allah, Abad Babal, Shalom.